The Bitcoin bull market might not be over. The crypto bull market might not be over. And I want to show you one indicator that keeps me bullish in times like these. And I actually think it could mean that we're going to have a really awesome 2025. I want to show you this chart here today. I want to show you this one indicator you can look at. And while everyone is scared, they're scared of recession. They have fear, right? They have concerns. And it's understandable, right? At any moment in time, Trump or Elon Musk could go out there and say something that just totally wrecks tariffs. There's tariff wars, there's trade wars, there's concerns, we're reducing, economic programs and government programs that help people out in America to survive. And so there's a lot of uncertainty. But in all of that uncertainty, there's this one metric that I keep looking at, and I keep saying, well, that has to mean something good is coming. And I want to show you this because it could mean that by May or June, Bitcoin is heading back to all-time highs. And that would be absolutely absurd. I know, thinking about it here today, like, it does not feel like Bitcoin is on the brink of some massive 2025 bull run altcoin season that we're all talking about. But I still see good things in the Bitcoin chart. I still see good things in the Cardano chart, and I still see this good indicator in global liquidity. Now, what I want to talk about today is how global liquidity is going up. And if global liquidity keeps going up, that could mean more money goes into risk assets like Bitcoin, Cardano, Solana, all these other things. And that Bitcoin itself is not just an American thing. So while the American economy could struggle, other economies around the world could do very, very well. This is, most of the 2000s, America did really, really well. Other economies did not do as well, right? Bitcoin and crypto does not only align with America. And so global liquidity is on the rise. It's taking out its all-time high, possibly putting in a new all-time high. And historically, Bitcoin has followed global money supply, or it's called M2. And so that's what I want to show you here today. This chart right here is all that you need to know and all that you need to focus on. And I'm going to show you some Twitter posts about some other people talking about this to give it some more context. But what you need to know is that this is Bitcoin on the daily chart against the dollar, right? This Bitcoin dollar. The yellow line is global money supplier M2. You can add this to your own trading view by going into indicators. And right here in the search bar, just type this, all right? Now, one thing you should also know is that this yellow line is on an offset. So this is not expected future growth. This is the growth that's happening, but M2 and Bitcoin seem to line up much better together when we put it on an offset. So by offset, I mean we come in here to the settings and we add 70 days of an offset. So M2 is in front of Bitcoin by 70 days. Some people do 30 days, some people do 60 days, some people do 70 days, and I've seen people do 105 days. Those are kind of the numbers that people are working with right now. 70 looks to line up really well to me. But other people like some other numbers depending on what time frame we're in. Okay. And so when we're looking at this, you have to remember that Bitcoin and M2, when we offset it by 70 days, they're lining up all the way back here since January 2024, right? This is 2024. And you can see how these are lining up almost perfectly, right? Stating that Bitcoin and M2 are highly correlated, and technically Bitcoin would be the one following M2. Nothing follows Bitcoin. Only crypto follows Bitcoin. And so Bitcoin is following the money supply. Bitcoin is following the money. And if the money is currently going vertical, taking out or heading to its all-time high, what does that mean for Bitcoin? As Bitcoin retraces, what does that mean for the next 6, 9, 12 weeks? Is Bitcoin going to go vertical as well? I tend to think so, okay? And we can zoom this back even further to give you some more context. You can see this peak, M2 went up, Bitcoin went up. These peaks coincided with these ones. These peaks coincided with these ones. And it's not 100% perfect because the scales are a little bit different. But when we zoom in here, you can definitely see what I'm talking about. Peak to peak, peak to peak, peak to kind of somewhat of a peak, right? Dips to dips, right? This retracement and, dead cat bounce and all this, these are all aligning with each other. In the very, very biggest parts of the bull run, it might not align 100% because Bitcoin might get overextended, but you can see how well these things are lining up together. And, it's just a very, very good indicator to look at of what we could see in the future for this asset, for crypto, for Bitcoin, and for money supply. Now, if you're not 100% knowledgeable on the money supply, there's a couple ways people like to look at it. There's this 65-month sine wave that goes back and forth, and it's aligned pretty well with global money supply over the years, or global liquidity. And the idea is that global liquidity goes in a cycle, like business goes in a cycle, like monetary policy goes in a cycle, like Bitcoin and crypto go into a cycle. And probably the two biggest things I would look at here is that Look at where we were in 2021. 2021, we were at the top of the liquidity cycle and the top of the global liquidity index. The black line's the liquidity index and the red line is the 65-month sine wave. In 2022, 2023, we were down here bottom to bottom, and now it looks like we are heading all the way back up here in 2025, 2026 to have an amazing blow off top. All right. And I'm not the only one looking at this. I've gotten some other great information from other people, and you can see what I'm talking about right here. Global money supply has a correlative prediction with Bitcoin. This guy's looking at 70. He's looking at 105. I don't really know about the 105, but he does say it has high correlation to it. And look at this chart. You can see money supply is leading Bitcoin, and this guy is talking about April 30th as a blast off date if you're using a 105-day offset. Now, if you're using a 70-day offset, March 25th could be the blast off date, but I think all that you really need to know is not perfect dates, perfect timing. It is that global liquidity is going up, M2 is going up, and that means Bitcoin can be heading up late March, early April, right? Sometime before the summer, we could see this massive bottoming phase in Bitcoin leading to a massive rally in Bitcoin because of just money being in the system. Now, somebody else that's also talking about this, let me show you, is Raoul Pal. This guy is talking about the same thing, and he's actually been talking about it, I think, since 2022 or 2023 is when I first saw him mention this, is where I kind of learned about the M2. And he's got the same thing. He's using a 10-week lead time. So he leads M2 from Bitcoin by 10 weeks, which, it's got to be like, I don't know how many days, but maybe that's 100 days, maybe somewhere around there. But you can see just how closely Bitcoin is following M2. And he is thinking that, Bitcoin is going to follow M2 into mid-2025 as well. And as M2 continues to all-time high, Bitcoin will definitely follow it back into the all-time high. His post does do a little bit something more interesting, and he correlates this back to 2017. He says, as Trump entered 2017, this is kind of his playbook. And so you can see back here, late 2016 was the inauguration of Donald Trump. What happened to the market? Global money supply shrinked, Bitcoin shrinked, and then that led us into one of the biggest rallies of Bitcoin history into the 2017 bull market, right? We all know just how good 2017, 2018 was. And he's saying how we had the exact same reaction to the 2017 high dollar, high rates, which then reversed in about March. And so we can look at that for ourselves. You should always go look at that for yourself. And I've kind of already highlighted this back here. And so what Raoul Pal is saying is that 2017, let me find the March month, 2017 in March is correlating to this area right here. And so what you can look at here is we had kind of this high to this high, and then this movement right here is kind of correlated with this one. It's not 100% perfect, but you can kind of see how this dip in Bitcoin was this dip in M2, and this dip was this dip. This kind of high and low structure right here is kind of like this high and low. Sometimes Bitcoin deviates. Yeah, it's not 100% perfect, but you can see how that structure is like this structure. This structure is like this structure with this come up right here. And then this kind of structure, this drop is kind of got to be like this one right here. And the big correlation is just Bitcoin continues to follow M2, and how in March, this is what was going on. This is the week. This is the high right here. This high in Bitcoin was March 6th. This low was March 25th. And so we can go look at that today. If these cycles are kind of lining up a little bit as far as money, M2 money supply is concerned, we have March 3rd kind of as like this relative high. And the question is, will March 25th, somewhere down here, lead us to that next change in direction for Bitcoin? As far as how far Bitcoin could drop until then, or where it could drop to until then, the thing that I would be looking at is kind of this structure right here. We have kind of like this zone right here that Bitcoin kind of made like a high before its current high. And we have these two moving averages that Bitcoin has been riding since about February 2023. And so these are kind of a stage 2 indication of where Bitcoin is. Stage 2 is a classic growth indicator. Down here, this is stage 1, stage 2. And as long as Bitcoin's maintaining these moving averages, that is still a stage 2 growth phase. Now, what I think Bitcoin, if it's going to align with this M2 money supply theory, is that hopefully it would stay above $70,000 around this $73,000 area, kind of correlating with this previous higher high, and hopefully staying in line with these moving averages. The big problem is when these moving averages start going too horizontal, Bitcoin then has a chance to bounce up and down of the moving averages, which could be classic stage 3 behavior, which is a distribution phase kind of at the top of a bull market. So I think we should be watching the M2 money supply theory. The dates you should be looking at are either March 25th or April 25th, somewhere around there between late March, early April. And this could coincide with some other things going on. And in late March, we're getting a FOMC meeting. So maybe there's like some stuff that's going to happen. There's always these catalysts that align with the charts. And I think maybe late March or early April could be the time we start to see Bitcoin finding a bottom, a recent bottom on its current down phase that it's in before heading back into another up phase. If not, I'd be watching for it to bounce around these things. We can always monitor this M2 theory, but I think a lot of people are having more fear than they need to at this point. And, I don't really see a lot of reasons to share that sentiment as of right now. And I would like to keep the bullish sentiment as long as I can until further validation. So that's what I'm looking at on the chart. That's what I'm looking at with the money supply. I think this is one very good indicator you can add to your toolkit that not a lot of people are talking about compared to the negative, right? A lot of people are talking about the negative. Not a lot of people are talking about the positive. I get it. I get that a lot of crazy things could happen in just a week, right? If a week of bad news happens, there could be a lot of things happening. I get the recession fears, but as of right now, I think you should still be a little bit more bullish on crypto. Maybe it takes 6 months before we get to the recession. And if that's the case, we could see another rally in crypto, rally in Bitcoin, rally in Cardano. And I wouldn't want to miss out on that if it did happen, okay? If you're still watching the video, in the description, Crypto 100x Blueprint. We got a lot of good stuff going on in there, talking about a lot of this stuff in a different way, so you don't always have to watch videos. You can read a little bit about it. But hope you enjoyed the analysis. If you are still watching, please like, subscribe. We'd appreciate all the support, and we'll see you in the next one.